Hello, Staples. This is Dan Geraghty from the English department. This is also Brian Tippy from the English department, and we're here today to share with you a video of a presentation we delivered to the PTA. We thank them for supporting grants in the purchase of technology that we've used to digitize Shakespeare and to teach Shakespeare to you.
We also went to ask them for another grant to buy a whole bunch of iPads to use as a class set, and we showed them a digital Macbeth textbook that we put together, and that's what you're going to see us do.
Here it is. I'm Dan Geraghty, teacher of English here at Staples, and I really want to start off by saying thank you. A few years ago, after a professional development day that we had for the English department, Liz Com came in and gave us this article, Digital Shakespeare, teaching Shakespeare in the digital world. And at the time, I was just finishing up studying with Professor Don Liu at UConn, and he kept pushing this idea that reading is changing, literacy is changing. We're living in a world of new literacy. Students are no longer flipping pages and reading left to right, top to bottom. Students are using hyperlinks and images and stopping to pause for video. And just the way our habits of mind are changing in terms of how we approach text. What is text? What is a visual text, etc. And Brian and I started this conversation about, okay, so that's great. How do we do that when we bring it into the classroom when still we're printists? We're sitting here with all this print material, but all the students are living in this digital world. And out of that, one of the things I did was I put together a Records grant and asked for a MacBook, because one of the things that was in this article was how to digitize your DVD collection, to pull it down, to basically store it, and then be able to create mashups and work with the video to tease out scenes, to create content that you could use in your classroom very easily. You could create trailers, students could create their own videos, etc., using original video, using, for example, the Royal Shakespeare version of Macbeth or the Ian McKellen. So that was approved. And Brian and I started to riff off of where can we go from there. Brian saw this great article on, well, not article, he wrote in a book, Playing Shakespeare with John Barton from the Royal Shakespeare Company, and said, if we rip those and we bring in Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet and all these, we digitize all of our Shakespeare clips, we can marry the lessons from the Royal Shakespeare Company to the parts of the films that we want the kids to see, and we could also have that enrich our content in the course. So sometimes, yes, it is of value to watch an entire film. But when we teach the Shakespeare course, we're trying to go through four canonical texts in a semester. There's no way to also view all of them. So how can we watch, for example, a balcony scene or the to be or not to be soliloquy and marry that with a specific lesson that we were working with? So from that, one of the ways we dovetailed off of that was Brian researched the iBook's author and the fact that teachers, through this program, we can begin to actually make our own content, make our own books, create curriculum that we can focus on our students down to a granular level and say, you know, this is what we teach as we go through this text. We can embed it all here in a digital format. So when that grant was given to us last year, we bought the 10 iPads. That became sort of this great little R&D lab for us through the technology committee, through specific teachers, through individual teachers. And that's really one of the ways Brian took off and created this MacBook, the iBook that is for Macbeth. And it's something that we're looking to grow. So I think just saying thank you for those two grants, that all of that directly impacted all of sort of this innovation that we're trying to bring into the high school, and it wouldn't be possible without those Records mini grants. So thank you for that.
So we should say that the pens money that we hope to get this year is all going to go for another 20 of those, so we can have a class set.
A class set would be incredible, because then it would be less of sort of this lab, R&D lab for teachers and a few students, and now the R&D lab is exactly where we want it, with the students on content we already teach.
Right. And if you're wondering where the money goes when you get something like a laptop for the English department, Dan is largely the person who ripped hours of Shakespeare and Shakespeare supplementary video and then organized it into really useful clips. This scene, this soliloquy, this speech on meter, this speech on intention. And we have this library. When John talks about not getting married to a particular technology or a particular device, what we've done is we've created content that we can deploy in any device. So we have these clips And for 3 years before these iPads showed up, we've been using them in classes, they're in presentations. I can flick back and forth on my laptop between the speech, Leonardo DiCaprio delivering it, that guy from the Zeffirelli, Romeo and Juliet, that no one knows his name, delivering it, you know,
Romeo.
and then flicking to the Staples Players Romeo from a few years ago. So we can actually take the Staples Players version of, as long as it's on DVD, we can rip the same speech and say, hey, did Noah do it better than Leonardo DiCaprio? And the answer actually is yes. Which says something about a theater program here, and well, maybe about Leonardo DiCaprio.
Wow, I think, wasn't it?
What's that?
Oh, wasn't that who it was?
I believe his first name's Noah, just because the kids say, oh, Noah.
No.
You know, so that's all I got.
No.
Wiki.
That sounds technological. So what we've done recently is Apple brought out iBooks Author, which lets you make your own iBooks for iPads. And you can put anything in them. Any piece of multimedia you want can be put side by side with anything else. And then Apple rolled out a set of tools kind of aimed at students, like self-checking quizzes. You make little multiple choice quiz questions or matching visual quiz questions. And it tells the kid right on the spot, did you get it right? And it's uniquely suited to Shakespeare, because what we wanted to create was a Shakespeare text that allowed us to tailor the experience to each kid. You know, when you're in a classroom, you're really working super hard to differentiate for wherever each kid is, but there's 26 in the room, and there's a limited amount of time. We can create a text with all this material in it, and the kid only accesses what he needs. And if the kid's ready for a challenge, it's there too. So if the kid doesn't need supplementary material but is ready to kind of challenge himself a little bit, we can build that in, and we know our kids better than anybody, so rather than buying a textbook from somebody that's good for kids all across the country, we can make the Staples textbook of something. And that was kind of the vision. And of course, what do we have sitting around? A huge library of multimedia stuff on Shakespeare we could drop in. So a lot of the creation was a matter of drag and drop. You know, I said, okay, well, we got the dagger soliloquy, and I've got 3 clips of the dagger soliloquy to look at. So the laptop that you got is still working for us. And one interesting thing about the way these things work, this laptop was purchased by the English department. You can see it's, you know, thinner, faster, stronger, lighter, or whatever. But to forward this project, so sometimes when you guys kickstart something, the people who allocate the money can really see, oh, okay, we need to get on this. So we have the 10 iPads. That's not enough for a class. An iPad's a device designed around an individual kid's experience, and so you can't check it in or out very effectively. The thing has to kind of be reset and reconfigured. All of you with them know you kind of tweaked everything to your own needs. We need a way to deploy a set to kids over a sustained period, so 10 doesn't do it. The 10 turned into a teacher R&D lab. I mean, this is mine now, but I had it for about 6 months. I had one out of the library to work with. Kids and teachers are still doing that, and now we kind of want to make a class set and actually give them to the Shakespeare class. That's my idea. Give them to the Shakespeare class for the term, do all the text on it, and all this potential that's also in the device in that one class. See how that goes, learn all the wrinkles, and then see if it's worth rolling out more. All the while maintaining that idea that the day that Apple stops being the right product for us, we drop it. There's no loyalty to Apple here. Currently we have Apple devices out because those are currently the best for what we're doing. But the second that Google rolls out a better tablet, we're on that. Nobody's got any particular Apple loyalty. I have it on my phone because of AT&T, as you all probably know. There's no way out of that, but we're not getting the kids' phones, so it's fine. What we found is there's iTunes U, which is free software, that allows us to deploy all these materials straight to the iPad wirelessly. Some of you have already done it. If you haven't, if you had trouble, it's probably just because you're not completely updated. This is bleeding edge stuff, so you have to have the most recent version of everything sometimes for it to work. So once you get to here, though, in iTunes U, you have the course. And, did I not open the book? And the course breaks. No, there it is. The key advantage here is we don't just like these things because they light up and because they have batteries in them. Sometimes you get the feeling that there's a push to just put technology in kids' hands. A pen is technology, paper is technology too. There are things that this does that we buy into. I don't just want my kids to have stuff that lights up. That's not all that engaging on its own. However, the ability to tailor things to the individual kid is incredible here. I give mini lectures on meter and rhythm in Shakespeare poetry as a way of moving into text analysis. And I can give that in class, but if you get lost, I can create a mini lecture.
Now let's take a look at those same principles in a real life.
That you can look at in the course.
Is this a dagger, which I see before me?
This is fun because
the
it's
handle
intercut with
It's a dagger, which...
It's intercut with Patrick Stewart doing it. So there's an example. Let me scrub forward to where it's cutting back and forth.
Want to see that again?
Is this a dagger which I see before me?
Right? And
If you can hear, is this a dagger?
that's me, if you can't tell. And I can throw these together in about 20 minutes. And we can create a library of Staples teachers' mini lectures that can be built into any part. They can be dropped directly into the textbook if we want. These I've shown as, you can just use as supplemental materials in the course itself. But you can actually put the speech on Macbeth's rhythm next to that speech in Macbeth, and I'll show you that. So if we look at the book, which you can access in your iBooks, or if you're in the course in the materials tab, which is where I am, I can also tap it. I pre-downloaded it. It's 700 megabytes. It takes about 10 minutes on a normal home connection, maybe 15 to get. But and if you started, you would be on the first page. But a note on the materials: everything that we've used here is used appropriately according to copyright and licensing. Just as a note, we haven't just done whatever we wanted. In this particular edition, all the photos of Scotland happen to belong to me or my family, just from vacations to Scotland. So, and there's actually notes in the back on where they are, if you're interested in any of them. Or if you're planning a vacation, there's some really nice spots to visit in Scotland, designated by region. Things that don't belong to us are all used according to either a Creative Commons license. They're either from like Wikimedia, like that picture of the House Martins. That's a Wikimedia. That's not a personal thing, but it's credited appropriately. And then the video clips are all used under what we believe is a fair use exemption to copyright. Short clips of copyrighted works can be used for educational purposes as long as that purpose does not supplant the original work. There's no way that anyone could argue that one speech from the Patrick Stewart Macbeth is intended to replace a DVD of the Patrick Stewart Macbeth. So we believe everything we've done is within really appropriate licensing and copyright restrictions. And anything we find out isn't or is arguable, we can pull or change. And the fun thing is, if I find something I want to add to this book today, I can add it later today, and I can have the book redeployed 10 minutes after that. A new version of the book could be in your hands if you want it. Usually I'd probably save that for something important, but I have a whole set of edits and typos that English teachers who looked over it this week have found for me, and I'll go fix them, and the next version won't have those. So we can constantly do it. You can drop the chapter in on whatever you want into this textbook and redeploy it. And those things are all granular, and any teacher can customize their own version. It's super cool. So, sorry. I have a whole list of things. Don't miss this feature. We built in a live glossary of key terms. We chose to focus on archaic terms or terms that are used differently than they are today because the thing also has a built-in dictionary, any words you want to highlight and look up. For example, if I don't know what a hostess is, well, no one's going to know what hostess is anymore, right? Hey, where is that? I forgot to do that. There it is. Define. So that's not a word that I did, and I can get a definition of the built-in dictionary. But a word that I did, a word that dictionary is not going to give the right definition, it's going to give a modern definition, or a word like gloms or cawdor, which are places, I have as a glossary. And so all the way through the text, instead of having a text where there's all these notes on the left, like the best edition we have, I think, is where all the notes are on the left, and there's no indication of where they'll pop up on the right, and if you're confused, you look to the left and hope for the best. Now, it's bold. If there's a note, it's bold. So as you're looking, and if it's not, you look it up in the regular dictionary. So as you're reading through the play, if you know it, ignore it. Right? So a kid that's ready doesn't need it. A kid that might need a lot of supplementation to get through doesn't need to have a contemporary English translation, doesn't need a million notes to flick back and forth between, because if you put the contemporary English in front of them, they read that. Path of least resistance down the page. They have everything. And then with more complex problems, right, sentences that are hard to understand rather than individual words, we created these self-checking quizzes that ask you instead of telling you. So Banquo goes on for a while about house martins. What does he believe about them? It's a weird little passage. It's very strange. It's a very long digression on house martins. But he thinks that, I think it's healthy air. Yes. And it tells me if I'm correct. And if I pick the wrong one, it just tells me, nope, and I can keep guessing. So if a kid guesses a bunch of times, they finally get told. And then they can move on to the next. Sorry, I meant the next question, or the next chapter. I built in a few examples of things you might do as a teacher, and we can customize as we go, talking about soliloquies, for example. If you, think in Act 1, Scene 5, I built in some stuff, and I crashed it. So, not perfect. Take me back. Just to rush through a few of the more features. One of the things that I did in this chapter is give a highlighting assignment. Go highlight and annotate at the end of this chapter. So go back and do it. And I actually did a little bit of it. So I coded blue for questions. I got so confused here, right? I coded yellow for themes. You can have kids write more than that. And you can have them do it through the whole book. And the neat thing about the notes is not only are you annotating, which by the way with a school book you can't, because you got to give it back.
Yeah.
Your kids can keep the Staples Macbeth forever, right? As long as the particular technology is supported. So one thing that's neat about the notes though is I can get them off the iPad super easily. You can view them together, all your notes in a row, and I can assign something and say, guys, when you're done, send it to me, right? And I can email some or all, right? And I can email it to Mr. Tippy, and I'm done, right? So
Can I just riff off
now I
of
have a
that
demo in my
about,
inbox.
about goals? One of the things
Yeah.
that we're talking about is critical reading, close reading skills, scanning lines, interpreting text. All of it is, wherever we see our mini lessons, we can embed them in the book. That's one of the nice things that is there in terms of, in addition to other elements of just the text. The mini lessons are there, and then they can go back and work with them, like you said, submit them, email them,
Right.
go back and revise them, etc.
Right. Just to run down a few of the things that we're really excited about, you can search the whole book for text. So that hunt for a quote thing your kids have to do, shorten the technology. Yes, everyone's had a child writing a paper going, I forgot to take notes the first time around. Well, if they took notes the first time around, you already saw that. That can be emailed straight, never retyped, drop right in your paper. Just copy right out of your email, drop in your paper. Even if you haven't annotated, you can search the text for any words you want, and it comes right up. So if I know fair is foul, and I search for fair, all the scenes that it's in are right there already.
That's great. Love
There's
that.
a previous page feature. For those of you that have been playing with it, you may notice I bop you back in the book. I say, hey, do you see how similar this is to Act 1, Scene 5? And you touch it and you go back and then you're lost. There is, under the bookmark tab, there is a previous page viewed feature, so you just go back. You don't actually have to search back through the book. That was one thing I realized. I was sending people back to the book because that's a neat thing to do, and they didn't necessarily know they could come right back. But it is a feature that's in there. So that's just the top of what this thing does. And of course, I think the flashiest thing, because we do have a minute, is the video clips. I could put 3 dagger soliloquies right next to each other, 3 different great performances, or terrible, by the way. It's fun to put in a bad performance. I got Ian McKellen doing it.
Very young Ian McKellen.
Very young Ian McKellen. And you can blow it right out. Or if I prefer, the Roman Polanski, sort of cheesy, weird one. I love it every time the dagger appears, it goes ding. Or if I want the Patrick Stewart Gothic,
Is this a dagger which I see before me?
this is a great production. I don't know if you've seen it.
I built toward my hand.
It's on Netflix if you want to watch the whole thing all the way through. And I can ask kids questions. I can ask them to send me a note about it. I can ask them to blog about it. And they don't leave the device. And so there's this huge, huge list of things that kids can do. So every extra iPad we can get means if we can get more, we can get 2 sections going. The history teachers want 150 of them to do multiple, you know what I mean? Everyone we can get, if we get enough for the critical mass to deploy a set, the kids have it for the term, or for whatever period we check them out to that, and then you know, the possibilities. You can shoot a whole scene on this and cut it, you know? So I'm going to stop there and take questions. So thanks for watching. And if you're interested in seeing more of that Macbeth iBook or some of the other materials we prepared for that Shakespeare course, you can go to iTunes U on your iPad and sign up using this enrollment code.
And thanks a lot. We're really excited about this. We do believe this is a game changer. This is technology that we want to bring into the classroom. This is how we want to deliver Shakespeare. We make Shakespeare even cooler on the iPad. So all of you kids out there, you got your iPads, download the book, read the book, and we'll be seeing you. Have a great day.